First of all, like, comment, and subscribe. It helps the algorithm. Or don't if you're not in the mood to do so. It's only a crushing blow to my ego if I see views without likes. It's fine. I'll get over it. And donate to you. Consider donating to your boys' GoFundMe, but more on that later. I'll put a link in the description for the Mark Wade lol suit. Anyway, Tim Lim with Black Hops, Douglas Ernst with Soulfinder, and John Della Rose with Flying Sparks, the black sheep of comics. I would call them the bad boys of comics, but the cringe would kill me. There are no bad boys of comics, though I'm sure Gail Simone and Kelly Sue DeConnick and Mags Visaggio consider themselves the bad boys of comics with their stunning and brave woke comic books that sell so well. You know, it's funny, but I'm sure they really do think they are writing cutting-edge stories, that they are rebels and not just boomer soccer moms who religiously watch Rachel Maddow and think Obama was the Messiah. I know Mags will never be a soccer mom, but in spirit, Mags is a woke soccer mom who loves socialism so much that she completely fails to move to a socialist country. It's kind of weird that even Madonna, who is living in the socialist paradise of Portugal, wants to move back to the States. In case you don't know who Madonna is, she is a giant whore from the 1980s who has been fisted more than Tim Doyle and Mags Visaggio combined. Of course, I'm only kidding, don't sue me. Action for summary judgment, the fisting defamation case. Remember, guys, truth is an absolute defense to defamation. Just saying. And I thank God that in legal terms I am judgment-proof, i.e. you can't get blood from a stone. Madonna was a mediocre singer who looked like your friend's ugly sister, but she could be had for a line of coke and a 40, but you always used a condom and a dental dam, or just wrapped everyone in saran wrap and spermicidal lubricant. I have no idea where I was going with this, but to be fair, I have been on pain medications for a back injury for the past month. In fact, some of the videos I have made have been incredibly harsh. I listen to them and realize I can't put them online, not even on BitChute, though some do find their way on BitChute, the ones that can't go on YouTube without getting just kicked off YouTube. Anyway, the black sheep of comics, or to be more accurate, the black sheep of Comicsgate. But since Comicsgate is already the black sheep of comics, I guess it makes them the blacker sheep, or the blackest you, which is a joke that works better in writing. Anyway, back to in the beginning of Comicsgate, when we were wild and free like gay unicorns, prancing in the fields. We were all Comicsgate, but factions quickly formed. Too many gay ops and machinations. Too many liar worm tongues fomenting discord. One of the many tiffs was a very mild disagreement when EVS made an off-the-cuff comment about keeping politics out of comics. It was just an opinion. EVS isn't actually going to hurt sales of Tim's Thump comic. EVS could bring Tim sales, but I don't think his comics would actually take sales away. And EVS didn't say Thump was garbage, he just didn't think it was Comicsgate, which is a bit of a weird opinion because many of us just define Comicsgate as social justice warrior free independent comics. If Tim Lim wants to do a political parody and people buy it, then who cares? But Tim was on the show the next day, and he brought the famous transcripts, which wasn't a big deal. It was a little autistic, but so what? Tim is Asian. He wanted to keep his facts straight. Oh, wait, is that racist? Guess what? Tim doesn't care because he actually has a sense of humor. If you listen to Tim when he is a guest on people's shows, he is very funny. So that explains the tiff between them. Again, it's nothing for adults to get worked up about. We can agree to disagree like gentlemen and ladies, but then the cash grab fiasco happened. Now, some of this ties in with Doug Tenenbaum, but I actually didn't see too many of his shows. I'm not going to say he's incredibly boring. I tried to watch when Nerkish was on because I like Nerkish, but Doug mostly did drawing streams, and I wasn't that into it. From what I saw, Nerkish was having his midlife crisis, probably due to his serious health problems, and Doug was trying to save Nerkish's soul, which I have to admit would be a hell of a feat. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you'd have to see some of Nerkish's earlier work. He has since either made those videos private or removed them. He is him. He is Nerkish. There's really no one to compare him to. But those earlier videos have mostly been removed, which is a shame because they were freaking hysterical videos. But there were no sacred cows. So to see him talking to Doug was a trip. And don't get me wrong, Christianity is very interesting, or at least the New Testament is very interesting, which I guess is the same thing. So it was kind of cool to see Nerkish find some comfort in Christianity. But now here's where things get fuzzy. Now, Cash Grab was going to be a combination of Cecil, Nerkish, and Tim, but for some reason, Tim and Nerkish decided to call off the project. I think it may have something to do with their belief that Cecil is a degenerate, self-destructive hedonist, which he totally is, and that's why we love him. We do love Cecil. He is a shining star. But the only people who really know why Nerkish and Tim bowed out of the project are Nerkish and Tim. And this relates back to the concept of due process. This isn't a court of law, but the concept applies. Since I don't actually know the facts, I can't reach a conclusion. It's all speculation. So because of this, there are factions and cliques. One side has Cecil and Ethan, and the other has Tim, John Delarose, Nerkish, and then there are lesser connections between the groups. Bonds are forming and dissolving all the time. There are stars, planets, and moons in the Comicsgate galaxy, including rogue meteors, and Nerkish is something, he's in a highly elliptical orbit that crosses very close to planets, threatening their health and stability. Just so you know, I had a Uranus joke that I crossed out because I'm going to keep things classy, because I'm all about class. Nerkish also had an edgy teenage boy type of Discord server that basically, from what I heard, because I'm not on Discord, because I've heard it's cancer, from like 90% of what comes out of Discord is just not good. They told non-stop Holocaust jokes, which I'm sure is just a bunch of edgy kids trying to outdo each other. And while I believe in free speech, I also believe in freedom of association. EVS is a businessman. He can't have any association with that kind of thing. And to be fair, what's the upside in having a Discord that is just edgy kids trying to outstorm each other? It's not going to help you sell books or help your brand. And I get the feeling a lot of these edgy kids are anti-Comicsgate people who simply want to destroy Comicsgate. If you follow the anti-Comicsgate kids on Twitter, you'll realize that a lot of the anti-CG are violent, mentally ill people who fantasize about hurting the pros in Comicsgate. EVS got 2 death threats that I personally read and screen captured, but more on that later, because the guy who made those 2 death threats is, more on him later. The anti-Comicsgate people tried to murder Peter Samedi and Edwin Boyette by swatting them. Now keep in mind, Peter and Edwin are 2 of the nicest guys associated with Comicsgate. I'm not saying they are Comicsgate, but their names are associated with them. And Renfamous's crowd tried to murder them because of comic books. That's how insane the anti-Comicsgate crowd is. So Cash Grab fell through, and we were all disappointed, but it's not like they had advanced far enough where anyone was losing money. It was, let me see if I can play this without the sound. It was a contract that fell through, and many contracts fall apart in the preliminary stages. If Cecil wanted to write it with someone else, people would still love it. It's not a big deal, but because it had so many eyeballs watching it, people picked sides and made a much bigger deal out of it than it really deserved. There's a term in contract law called detrimental reliance, where you rely on an implied agreement to your detriment. But that doesn't even apply here because they both put time and effort into the project. but it's easy enough for Cecil to get another artist to finish the project. There are a ton of artists who would love to work with Cecil. So, to measure Cecil's remedies, i.e. his economic damages, he probably doesn't have any. Without Tim and Nerkish, Cash Grab would have sold, or with Tim and Nerkish, Cash Grab would have sold, say, $100,000. With Kelsey Shannon, it's still going to sell $100,000. I mean, trying to guess damages is very tricky. It's a lot of speculation. Especially in an endeavor like this, where it's a new endeavor, and neither Cecil or Nerkish have a history in producing, so it's completely up in the air. Obviously we want to see a Cecil Nerkish book. It was great, but it fell apart. It's the time has passed. We're adults. We can move on. But Cecil, thing is, I'm talking about his damages. Cecil is a much loved character. People are going to support him. After all, Cecil is love. Peace be upon him. So because of some missteps by Tim, his campaign isn't doing as well as it could have. And while we're upset at Nerkish and Tim for walking away from Cash Grab, I don't want to see them hurt financially. We aren't SJWs. We don't cancel people. We forgive and forget because we are adults. Anyway, check out Tim's book. And when Cecil's book comes out, check that out also. If Nerkish comes out with a book, let's take a look at it. I'm sure it'll be very funny. We don't have to pick sides. Love is love. Cecil is love. Check out Black HOPS, Hare Trigger. I don't like seeing these kind of factions develop with Tim Lim, and there's the War Campaign has their group, and the Tim Lim, John Delarose, Nerkish has their group, and they're kind of, Nerkish and Doug Tenenbaum have a kind of association, and Doug Tenenbaum's on the outs with Ethan, and Ethan seems to be on the outs with a lot of people because he's kind of controlling a little bit. And I'm not attacking any of these people because they're all, support them all. If you like their product, check out their books, check out their shows. You can watch War Campaign and laugh your ass off, and also go back to watching John Delarose or Ethan or whoever, all these other people. These are all the videos I'm looking at. Monty Python Life of Brian is GD perfect. Strange. I saw this where he's holding the bouncing Betty. That cracked me up. To see this cute little bunny front towards enemy. It's a curved piece of steel with a bunch of C4 on it, and then on top of the C4 is a bunch of steel bearings or lead ball bearings. To see this little Suicide Squad bunny is it's just adorable. So we don't have to. Most of us are adults. We don't have to say, "Oh, I'm siding with War Campaign, so I'm against Ethan," or "I'm siding with Cecil, so Tim Lim and Nerkish are dead to me," or "I like Edwin Boyette, so I don't know who he's arguing with." It seems like Comicsgate hasn't fallen apart because Comicsgate isn't going anywhere. Comicsgate can't go anywhere. It's an idea, and as I define Comicsgate, as I defined earlier, the simple concept of SJW free comics, independent comics. That's it. That's the definition. Tim Lim wants to do a political parody where either he makes fun of Trump or he makes fun of the people making fun of Trump, and people want to buy it and we support it or don't support it. Great. But I wouldn't say he's not part of Comicsgate because he's doing a political parody. If he says he's Comicsgate and he's an independent non-SJW, then yeah, that's the definition of Comicsgate. And there are going to be people who we don't agree with. You may not agree with some of their politics, but that's the kind of the one. If Comicsgate has dogma, then it would be that NPC free, small, independent people. And even though Ethan's had a campaign that is over 800,000, it could possibly get to 1 million. Yes, that is a very, very small campaign compared to the big 3 or the big 2 at least. Comicsgate is growing, though I think the first year was $2 million, and hopefully the second year is even more, though I understand that it takes time to write these books, and so it might be, the second year might actually dip, but the third year will probably come back with a vengeance and be even bigger than the first year, which I certainly hope it is. Because the way the comic industry stands now, it is not good. If you read, say Marvel is kind of, Marvel's the canary in the coal mine for an industry, and as Marvel gets worse and worse, well, comic book stores go out of business, and as comic book stores go out of business, you simply have less of a smaller geographic footprint for comics to be sold. And your boy was talking about, said something like, it's getting more and more difficult for comics to be big sellers anymore because there are just not as many physical stores, not as many brick and mortar stores, because Marvel is destroying an industry. And when you destroy the industry by writing propaganda, social justice warrior propaganda, the brick and mortar stores go out of business, or they convert over to something else, convert over to card games and video games and that kind of thing. So he's saying something like, if you wanted to have an issue that sold record numbers, it's probably impossible now because there's just not enough geographic locations to do it in. You need to sell them online, and selling individual issues of comic books online is almost impossible because of the shipping costs. They need to be mass shipped to a store, and then from there people can buy them at $4 a pop. You can't buy a comic for $4 and plus pay $4 in shipping. It's crazy. You can pay more than that in shipping for a $20 book, or which is actually, I didn't even notice, is $20 because most Comicsgate books are $25. And it also is telling the industry and telling these anti-Comicsgate people that people are willing to pay a premium for these books. They're willing to pay, when Comicsgate, some of the books were first coming out, they were $25 plus $10 shipping. And I mean, if that's like a 100-page book, okay, fine. But if it's much less than that, you got to look at it and say, wait a minute, this is crazy expensive. But guess what? People are willing to pay for it. Now, people are willing to buy Jawbreakers and Ironsides based on supporting Zach. You figure, you know what, I can buy these books for say $35, $40. I think Zach's average sale was about $40. So you can buy these books, pay him $40. If the book sucks, or even if I never get it, well, I listened to Zach's content for a year. I got his content for free. I definitely got $40 worth of entertainment from the guy. So yeah, he can sell a book just based on being likable, being a likable guy, and also partially because he was attacked by an entire industry of sociopaths, of far left cultural Marxists. So you say, okay, you know what? I'll support him for $40. Fine. Hopefully I get a comic book that's decent. And as it turns out, Ironsides and Jawbreakers were very good comic books. So you can sell the first book on your name power, I guess, and then the second book is being sold on the power of the first book. So yeah, it is a growing industry, and his books are, I think he said 100 pages is going to be his model. So that is very cool. This is 70 pages, and I think he said if he makes more, he's going to include. Oh, I must have clicked perks. He's going to include more pages for one of the. It's a Special Forces Rapid, who has worked with the United States military to take out high-profile targets for over half a century. Found in the atomic aftermath of World War II. Actually, it's funny because Japan has an island now. It's the Bunny Rabbit Island. It was the Japanese, first of all, were monsters in World War II. There was nobody, in recent history, nobody was more evil than the Japanese. They're just absolute disgusting animals. They had an island that is now a tourist trap where they worked on biological weapons to be used against anyone and everyone. And now people visit this island with these these cute bunny rabbits, or will walk up to you and sniff you and play with you. It's like the Japanese atrocities of the war have just been weirdly forgotten. I realize that got incredibly dark, but obviously I have a chip on my shoulder about the Japanese treatment of POWs in the war. Anyway, this looks fantastic. The Special Forces bunny. And after being decommissioned in the early 21st century, retired to the family home, Belton, Texas, wasn't long before duty called once again. He was sent to the heart of North Korea to prevent a ballistic missile from striking Hawaii in the morning hours. This looks adorable. And what is that? Oh, he's throwing a pineapple. I thought that was a turtle or something. I mean, a pineapple grenade. Very cute, very cute. He's also very funny. Is that Edwin Boyette? That could be. Yeah, check this out. I hope Cecil says he is working on Cash Grab or Backstab or whatever he wants to call it, and good. That will be. I mean, he only has 10,000 subs, which isn't a lot of subs, but it's enough to launch a comic book that will get to at least 30 grand. But more important than the 10,000 subs is he has Ethan's help, and he has a lot of other people in Comicsgate who would love to help him sell his book. People like Cecil. People like Cecil, and they like Zach a lot. They have kind of an everyman appeal to them, even though they're completely different characters. Zach is a family man with a dozen kids from all over the world. And Cecil is, like I said, a degenerate, drug-using hedonist. But he's not a nihilist like Nerkish can kind of be. And the thing is, even though Cecil is kind of left of center and Zach is probably right of center, they're both very likable guys. And so, if they're selling a book, it's like, okay, I don't think I've ever given Cecil a super chat. So if I have to spend $35 to support him, that's a fair trade for getting hours of free content. Anyway, this looks good. This looks funny. And it's $20. I don't know what the shipping is. Probably $10. And he has a history of, writing comic books. It's a both direct sequel and a soft reboot. That seemed really weird to me because it doesn't. I thought the first book just came out a few years ago. Maybe it came out further than that. So it doesn't seem necessary to do a soft reboot, but it does. It looks fantastic. So, I mean, what can I say? He's a good artist. He's a very smart guy. And as what does the Comic Book Hut say? He's a doctor. And Comic Book Hut is somebody I haven't really talked about because I do not want to get on that guy's bad side. Because there are enough weird NPC enemies on Twitter that I don't need to have someone associated with Comicsgate mad at me also. Partners, talented, who's covering additional art by Reagan Long, Kelsey Shannon. All right, okay. I forgot Kelsey Shannon was tied in with this. Kelsey Shannon, check him out on YouTube. He'll be like the third name that will come up. He's a very funny guy. He does. Oh, and our animal rescue, Pacific Northwest Rescue. Yeah, definitely adopt, don't shop. The best dogs are rescue dogs, or cats, if that's or bunny rabbits. Believe it or not, there are rescue bunny rabbits, and sometimes even birds and stuff. But yeah, it's usually dogs and cats. All my mutts have been rescues. I've even house sat for some cats, which is kind of funny because I'm allergic to cats. But that's okay. They're adorable. This looks good. Yeah, so he's got a history of knowing what he's doing with comic books. And he's not, just because, we love Cecil, and just because they had a little bit of a disagreement with Cecil, he's not dead to us. He's not a garbage person. He's not canceled just because, two adults had a little bit of a disagreement. When Cecil's book comes out, I'm going to support it because he's Cecil. And he's a great guy, and he's a funny guy, and he's also going to write good books. But Timothy Lim is also able to write good books, and he's also a very, very funny guy. So this is my pitch for Black Hops, and let me just go out on a limb here. I think there's a chance. I was listening to a little bit of Ethan's show, and this came up, and I think there's a chance that if Timothy Lim wanted to go on Ethan's show, I don't think Ethan would automatically say no. I think he would at least give it some thought. I mean, if there was enough desire to see them at least get back together and start talking again, I mean, come on, we're all adults. Can't we talk about these kind of things? I mean, we don't need to cancel each other. That's what SJWs do. There's nobody in Comicsgate that is beyond forgiveness. I know everyone is having these bizarre spats and factions, and it's like, okay, well, let's be mad at each other for a month, but then it's time to forgive and forget, and at least come back to the table, because it's us against pretty much the world of comics. I mean, 99% of comics is against Comicsgate. So if we don't hang together, we're going to hang separately. Sorry to butcher that quote from the Founding Fathers. You know what I'm saying? So the thing is, if Timothy Lim... Here's the thing. If Timothy Lim did a talk with Ethan, obviously they'd have to talk about Cash Grab, and you'd have to have Cecil on, and you have to talk... Hell, bring Nerkish on. Bring Timothy Lim, Nerkish, and talk about Cash Grab, why it fell through. Because it's not like, my God, nobody slept with somebody's wife here. It's just a contract that fell through. It's just friends had a mild disagreement. They don't need to part ways forever. They can come back and discuss things. It might be, I don't know what happened. I mean, but they can come on the show and they can explain it. Nothing. I mean, we're not SGWs. We don't need to act like SGWs. I realize this was supposed to be a much shorter video. Anyway, check this out. It looks funny as hell. And I will see you guys next episode.